Attention all drivers. Are you tired of spending hours waiting for an oil change? Say goodbye to long waits and hello to convenience with Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Our expert technicians will have you in and out in no time, so you can get back to what matters most. Plus, with our top-notch service and quality products, you'll drive away with peace of mind. Don't let a busy schedule slow you down. Visit Valvoline Instant Oil Change today and experience the difference.
Summer starts early here in Florida, which means we get more beach time, more sunshine, and more time to enjoy refreshing, sweet, and juicy fresh from Florida watermelon. The best part of summer is already here. Find locally grown Florida watermelon where you shop. Just look for the sunny Fresh from Florida logo or ask for it by name. Fresh from Florida. There's sunshine in every bite.
Are you curious about holistic treatments for some of the more common dementia symptoms? Well, then this is the best episode for you. We're discussing a variety of holistic treatments, and you know what I'm going to ask? Share this with your friends, family, and neighbors, because the more people understand how to cope with this type of disease, the better outcomes all of us will enjoy. Thanks. Welcome to Fading Memories, the podcast for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. I'm your host, Jennifer Fink. My mom had Alzheimer's for 20 years, and when I went looking for answers, I had to start a podcast to find them. Join me as we navigate the challenges of dementia caregiving together. Let's share our experiences, find solace, and discover the strength within us. Get ready to embark on a transformative caregiving journey with Fading Memories. Are you looking for additional advice, a recap on the week's episode, some suggestions on what to watch or listen to next, or a simple way to communicate with me? Then you definitely need to sign up for the email newsletter. It's a quick, less than 5-minute read, and the link to do that is in the show notes or on our website. Did you know that midlife metabolic changes can impact your brain health? Women often experience changes in energy regulation during midlife, feeling fatigued or having reduced energy. In addition to eating a Mediterranean diet, exercise, and stress management, one way to protect your brain health is to add Relevate from NeuroReserve to your day. With Relevate, you get science-backed nutrition to help strengthen and protect your memory and cognitive performance today and for years to come. You deserve a brain span that lasts your lifespan. And to help you get started, use the link in the show notes and code FM15 to get 15% off any regular order. I've been taking Relevate for 3 years now, and I've seen an improvement in my memory and thinking. Now, on with our show. Thanks everybody for joining us. You're going to love today's episode, which I always say every week because I know you're going to love all of them. With me today is Megan Bang. She is a nurse who is going to talk to us about cannabis and chronic illnesses, but more specifically dementia, and maybe some research that's come up lately, and see how maybe this might fit into our caregiving routine. So thanks for joining me, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So please introduce yourself a little more and tell everybody about your background.
Sure. My name is Megan Bang. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 11 years now. I started my career at Johns Hopkins Hospital and the bone marrow transplant unit, and then I switched to labor and delivery. And then my last bedside stint was hospice and palliative care. And then from there, when I was working hospice, I just saw the benefits of cannabis and CBD in my patient population. I had this patient who kept having seizures, and she was on 5 or 6 different seizure medications, of course, having side effects from those medications. And I knew we had to try something. I had read the headlines about CBD and cannabis and seizures, but I didn't know anything about it. It's not anything that we were taught in the field or in school or anything. So I just decided to jump into the deep end and start learning everything I could. I started going to conferences. I started a graduate program. I am 5.5 weeks from a master's degree in medical cannabis therapeutics right now. And I started my business called Trusted Canna Nurse. where we teach people how to use cannabis, CBD, and psychedelics as medicine. And so we kind of hold people's hand while they're navigating plant medicine. And then we have a very high quality line of CBD products that we can offer directly to our patients nationwide.
Awesome. I did not know there was a master's degree in cannabis anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been out of
There are a
school
few
too long.
programs.
I would expect that to be available at like Berkeley, but that's just a really bad stereotype that I should probably not indulge in. But I am from that area generally, so I can poke a little fun.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of caregivers use cannabis, generally edibles, to help their loved ones sleep through the night because, as you're aware, I'm sure that dementia throws off your sleep schedule. I mean, your brain doesn't know day from night half the time
Mhm.
sometimes. And of course, caregivers need rest so they can continue caregiving, just like nurses do. What other benefits are there for somebody caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or other cognitive impairment disease? How can they, one, learn more? Obviously, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Mhm.
But what can they do? What can they look into for their loved ones? Because I know about 60%. No, that's wandering. A good number of people with Alzheimer's get aggressive. My mom started to get. She was getting a little aggressive, very, very feisty at the end of her life. I don't know that I would have, I don't know, I might have tried cannabis for her, but she fell and broke her leg before
Mm.
it got to the point where I felt like we needed to investigate some alternatives. And I also don't know how the memory care would have dealt with that. So we never experimented around with that with my mom. But what should caregivers be thinking about um, with cannabis?
Yeah, great questions. And I'll go back to the sleep a little bit because I think sleep is just so important for both patient and caregiver. And a lot of times when we can target sleep, and we target sleep mostly with THC. CBD actually doesn't work that well for sleep. It's not sedating. It's THC that has that sedating effect. So that's why, a couple of milligrams of THC, usually in a gummy or a tincture, work really, really well for a lot of people for sleep. And then when we're targeting sleep and the patient is getting better sleep, then their daytimes are usually a lot better too, because they're not overtired. And same thing with kids, we see that, right? So that's one thing. We're targeting the symptoms of the neurodegeneration. And agitation and anxiety are the other two big ones. And that can be targeted with CBD during the daytime. Something like a high quality whole plant CBD product. Maybe you have some other cannabinoids. A cannabinoid is CBD or THC, or there are like 150 more that come from the plant. And there's about a dozen or so on the market. And as a nurse, that's something I know what each one targets, what receptors they act on, and then the effect that they're going to have. So that's when I kind of like walk people through. Let's try CBD, maybe a little bit of CBN, and let's throw in some terpenes. That's what makes like the indica sativa in cannabis. Let's throw in some calming terpenes and see if we can't get this patient a little bit more relaxed during the day.
Yeah, that's so one of the things I do for the Alzheimer's Association is community education. And one of my topics is common dementia related behaviors, and agitation is obviously one of them. And the steps they tell us to take is, obviously we need to like connect with the loved one, put on our detective hat, see if we can figure out what's going on, and then address their physical needs first. Could they have a UTI? Could they be having a reaction to medications? Any of those kind of things. And I find with agitation, there's usually more of an emotional trigger, which is the third step. But sometimes, to get them from point A to point B so you can kind of suss out the emotional triggers. Like one of the examples they give is this one particular woman is pacing in her house at night saying, I need to go, I need to go. And she's lost weight because she's walking so much. She's getting blisters from worn out shoes. So obviously you need to address those things. But the other main clue in the little scenario they give for her talk is that she was a nurse in the overnight shift for 40 years. So obviously the woman thinks she's got to go to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
and her circadian rhythm is like, yes,
messed up.
still flopped. Yes, very messed up.
And so that kind of scenario, I think, would um, probably benefit. Like if you're not able to like ratchet down the agitation so that you can then work on somehow convincing her she does not need to go to work. That's more of a challenge, I think, than the physical parts. But I would think that would be a good place to look into. Did you say CBN?
CBD, CBN, CBG is a great one. That's called cannabigerol. And what's great about CBG is it acts on our alpha 2 adrenergic receptors. And these are receptors that are involved in our fight or flight response. So it's really great for physical symptoms of anxiety. So that's yeah. And then in working with patients, we try to keep it as simple as possible. Let's try a little bit of THC at night. Let's try a little bit of CBD during the day, and then see how that works, and then adjust if we need to. And what we have seen is that consistent dosing over time yields the best results, as opposed to I'm not going to give it to her unless she's actually agitated. And here's why we like consistent dosing over time is because in neurodegenerative diseases, the brain has pretty bad neuroinflammation and oxidative stress. And neuroinflammation, we're talking about cytokines. And it's not a cytokine storm per se, but there are like these neuroinflammatory cytokines in the brain, and those cause damage and more degeneration and a lot of the symptoms that we see. These are the same symptoms that we see in concussion victims. And the great thing about cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, THC is that they decrease those cytokines in the brain. And then we have those same cannabinoids can gobble up the free radicals that cause that oxidative stress and neurodegeneration. So that also helps with the symptoms. And then it can do that body-wide too and help with any symptoms of pain that the patient might be feeling that we don't know about.
I read a study, and this is not the one I was talking about before we hit record. I read a lot. Is that in older adults, which I probably am, at least if I'm not classified that, I'm getting dang close. They're basically, neurologists are saying there's no amount of alcohol or THC that's safe for your brain. But I've talked to other, I have not talked to a medical professional about cannabis, so this is an excellent topic for today with you, obviously. That's the whole plan. But I've talked to like cannabis lifestyle people who are very big on like microdosing for very specific things, which is probably similar to what you do. My theory with, if you already got Alzheimer's, you don't want to make it worse, but you're saying that it can benefit the brain, and then I'm reading that it's not a good idea. It's like, it's so typical, like you get to the point where it's like, well, breathing is dangerous for yourself, so stop doing that.
Right.
Do you have
and to that,
go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to look at who's writing it and what experience do they have. Are they educated on the endocannabinoid system, which is this system that we have in our bodies that was only discovered 30 years ago. And this is a system that is responsible for homeostasis. It's the body's master regulatory system. And this is what turns the volume down on neurotransmitters that are released in a stressful event. Our endocannabinoid system kicks in, and it kind of helps us get back to baseline after that stressful event. If this system is out of whack for whatever reason, chronic stress, an injury, chronic illness, then that system can't maintain balance in the body. However, receptors involved in the system, called cannabinoid receptors, THC is the only molecule that binds to these cannabinoid receptors. I mean, we make our own that bind to that as well, but THC is the only one that binds to it. So if we want to release or reduce the amount of glutamate, harmful excitatory glutamate that our brain is releasing, then we need a little bit of THC to turn the volume down on the glutamate and the inflammatory cytokines. So while I am not a proponent of chronic use of high THC, people sucking on their vape pens every day, that's not at all what we're talking about. We're talking about small, low doses of THC. And we're seeing that that helps with symptom management. And there was a mouse study done. Of course, this would be really hard to study in humans, but there was a mouse study done, and they gave CBD and THC, I believe, is what they gave. They induced like the tau proteins, that are in dementia and Alzheimer's. They induced this state in the rats, and then they gave cannabinoids, cannabis, and then they found that like those proteins were decreased in these rat brains. So in a way, like, we're not reversing the disease, but we're not accelerating it. And I mean, there could be potential. And I have a patient story with this also. This is a dementia patient in Florida. He had been on cannabis for a while, since the start of his symptoms about 5 years ago. And he was doing fairly well. However, when the kids would come over, he would still be like in the corner, kind of withdrawn, despondent, reading a book, doing word searches, engaging with the kids was just not in his, in his vision at all. And then he started one of our products, and within a couple of months, he's doing word searches, and he's able to read, and he's doing bird watching, and he's like playing Uno with his grandkids and engaging with his grandkids. And we can't say it's reversing the disease, but he's getting back closer to where he was instead of the disease progressing.
So in the broad sense, what he's experiencing is potentially what people that are taking Leqembi could be experiencing.
Could be, yeah.
Without the large pharmaceutical bill.
Exactly. And he's not on any, maybe he's on a blood pressure med or something, but otherwise he's not on any of the dementia pills. And, there are 7 FDA approved dementia medications, but none of them actually target the symptoms. So we have to use like antipsychotics off label that have this black box warning for our dementia patients. And it's not safe. We don't want our loved ones snowed all day on Seroquel because they're agitated. And I've seen that. I just saw that with a patient last week.
Yeah, sometimes when people get aggressive and a bit obnoxious, that's kind of the only option a lot of them have. I know somebody whose loved one is in memory care. It's been a recent placement, and they don't like it. They're still resisting.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the caregiver, the family member said, I'd rather this person be more like a zombie than nasty, but the increased dose of the Seroquel has not made her a zombie. But you do have to keep increasing it because you build up a tolerance. So that only sounds like a temporary fix. I mean, I don't know how much Seroquel you can give somebody, but this person's loved one is advanced age. So, sometimes you got to you're racing the clock on the, end of life. With my mom, who'd had Alzheimer's for 20 years, my goal was not to do anything that would extend dying from Alzheimer's, because we all know that's pretty ugly. And she helped out by falling and breaking her legs. That was the end of that for her. You hear people about breaking hips. I didn't realize breaking a leg would have been the last straw, but the timing was good because it was right at the start of the pandemic, so I didn't have to deal with any of that. Yeah, so we're recording this on March 12th. She died March 31st, so Easter this year.
Wow.
I can't believe it's been 4 years. Like, holy crap.
Isn't that crazy?
It's like, yeah, it's like, I have no idea where time is going, but that's okay. We'll just keep going forward. But yeah, is there a max amount of Seroquel you can give someone?
It's been a while. I know that I don't know what the max is. I'm sure there is. And the risk of high doses of Seroquel are like, one of them is called tardive dyskinesia, which is when you have like these involuntary twitches and movements and muscle spasms. And that's not improving quality of life for these patients. No. That's decreasing. And if we have something that's like a natural plant that can be given without that side effect, then why can't we like give that natural medicine?
Because we still have a bias and a stereotype against this quote unquote plant-based medication.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it is, cannabis is federally illegal. CBD is federally legal. And a lot of people don't, a lot of facilities and communities think that if their patients are using CBD or cannabis, then they're going to lose their Medicare funding, which is false. Medicare has come out and said, we don't care if your patients are using cannabis or CBD. Don't let them light up when they're using oxygen. Make sure their stuff is stored in a safe place so their neighbors don't come in and steal it. So their Medicare is okay with senior living communities using their own cannabis and CBD as long as they're treating it like the medication, like the medicine that it is.
Wouldn't it be better in a assisted living memory care community for it to be more of an edible, or I don't know, do they even make it in like quote pill form?
They do make capsules. You can put, this is what I like to do with our CBD is like you can just take an empty capsule and put some oil in here and
Ah, that
then
would work.
cap it up. Yeah, yeah. So that works really well. Or you can just give them an oil. Edibles work well. Inhaling, there are a couple ways to inhale that include like the little vape pens that you see everywhere. Of course, there are joints that people smoke. And then there's a device called a dry herb vaporizer, which is when you take raw ground up flour and you put it in this device and then it just heats it up a little bit, not to the point of combustion. And then you inhale it and it's like almost inhaling steam. And the benefit of that is a super rapid onset. Within a few minutes, all of the other routes take 15, 45, up to an hour or two for an edible to kick in. But an inhalation method is like super rapid onset and a shorter duration. So if somebody has acute symptoms, and this is probably like for people who are like at home and not in a facility, but they do have like an inhalation method has a therapeutic benefit. Definitely.
Well, you're kind of deep breathing, so that's a start right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never been a
Absolutely.
smoker, so I have done edibles and I have done tinctures and I got shingles in 2021. I
Mm,
used a topical ointment, which helped tremendously. Because of course the
good.
doctor's like, "Oh, take Motrin." It's like, really?
Motion
This is
doesn't do it. And again, it's like the nerves that are firing and releasing those, the burning, all of those the molecules that make it burn, like Motrin doesn't target those. However, cannabis does and can decrease the firing of those neurotransmitters.
yeah,
And
it
there's
helped a
no,
lot.
yeah, yeah,
And then after I'd had it for like 3 months, and I'm like, this is affecting my mental health because literally there were just days when, like, late afternoon, it's like you could almost see like a personality shift. It was like, my tolerance for this is over. And I have a pretty high pain
mm,
tolerance, but it was getting ugly. And she's like, well, now you can have the gabapentin. And I'm like, I thought it was a narcotic. My dog was on it because he had serious nerve arthritis. But I'm like, it's been 3.5 months. I think it's a little late to start on the hardcore stuff. I'll just deal with it. So it was like another month. So about four and a
mm,
half months. I mean, it decreased over time, but oh Lord. It's like
yeah, yeah.
the topical roll on stuff was really good. Unfortunately, they ran out of the higher milligram stuff, and
Hmm.
the second batch of stuff I got wasn't quite as good, but it worked really good. I took a gummy and then a tincture, and then I stood up after watching TV. I was like, oh, whoops, I think I might have had a little too much there. But I felt much better and slept better. So, because of course I'm a
Good.
side sleeper, and it was on the side that I sleep on. So yeah, it was just like
Oh,
ugh. Yeah, so that's
yeah.
pretty much the maximum of my experiences. I don't drink because I don't drink calories, and every time I pass the dispensary, I'm like, maybe I should go back to that. I'm like, it's expensive. So I'm super
Right.
frugal, so
Yeah.
I just stick to normal stuff. So,
Yeah.
what
That's
other?
valid.
Nah, it's like I know how to relax. I don't think I need outside help with that. Usually there are days, but for the most part. So you're basically saying that it's small doses. So like the person I talked to about microdosing, is that about what you're talking about, or is it a little bit more than micro?
Right.
Or
Okay. So when we talk about microdosing, we could be referring to two different things. As a business, we have what we call microdosing programs, and that's when we're helping people microdose magic mushrooms or psilocybin, which is like the next big thing in mental health. And we actually have a dementia patient who is doing that, and he's already on cannabis. He's on some pretty decent doses of it, and then the microdosing of the mushrooms is also helping to calm him down during the day. So he's doing that. But microdosing cannabis is a thing too. And that's when we're talking about like 1 to 2, like maybe 3 milligrams of THC. And for a lot of my senior patients, we have gummies that have 3 milligrams or 6 milligrams of THC, and those usually work really well. I had a patient who had shingles, and she was taking one of our gummies during the daytime and at night. And she said that she could sleep because she wasn't in pain. And it's because the THC targets those specific receptors.
I did use gummies once for agitation, but it wasn't for myself. It was for my dog. So I had a dog, a golden
Mhm.
retriever. He was a rescue, and we like to travel in our trailer. Our girl dog, who's older, does not care where we're going as long as there's food and people to pet her. She don't care. She will go to the vet. She will go to the nursery. She will go to Michael's. She would go to the grocery store and the nail shop if that was, allowed. She don't care. Him hated it. It's like, oh crap. You could just see, and he would just tremble and shake. And we
Mm.
tried like the pet CBD and then the stronger CBD. We were gone for 3 weeks in 21. And it got to the point where it's like, dog, chew on one of these. That worked.
Yes, yes. And pets have an endocannabinoid system too. And, people read online that like THC is toxic for dogs, but a small amount can be really therapeutic, as you saw. And my dog had like similar agitation, only hers was like on a normal daily basis. And so we gave her a small amount of THC too. And it worked for her. She had a better quality of life.
Yeah, he was much better in the car when we gave him a gummy. It might have been a little, I can't remember if it was 5 milligrams or 10, but he wasn't that big a dog. He's like 60 pounds. So 10 might have been a little
Right,
much.
right.
But it was like desperate times because it was at the same time I had shingles. So he was getting my stuff. We were sharing.
Oh yeah. Good.
It's just, so it's interesting. So this patient that you have that's on cannabis and the psilocybin mushrooms,
Hmm.
is he having like normal without it? He's having what, severe agitation and anxiety?
Yes, yeah, those are
Wow.
two of his biggest issues. And then he has insomnia also, of
Oof.
course. Yeah, so the trifecta. And then I don't know what your opinion is, but I think that what we see manifesting in dementia is oftentimes related to unresolved trauma earlier in life. You see that with war veterans who are they have really bad agitation and they're very combative. And I think that could be from their PTSD from the war, or when they fought or whatever they went through. Of course, that's not proven or research or anything, but that's just my mind thinking like, why do some people exhibit like really agitated combative behavior and some people are just a little bit more pleasant, and is it because there are these hidden memories in the brain that have been stuffed down for so long that now in dementia are they making their way to the forefront and causing these issues? I don't
It
know, do you
could
have an
be.
opinion?
Yeah, so I've read, and I think my mom fell in this category, is that even like mild untreated depression, so like uh like you're just what the way I relate her issue to is like she graduated high school at 17 and a half, wanted to go to San Francisco to the Fashion Institute. Her parents are like, we're from the suburbs, like, oh, hell no. And we're not sending 17-year-old to San Francisco. Which of course I did. And then like she married my dad at 19, and I just feel like she had like this constant frustration, like I want to do this. And no, you can't do that because parents won't let you, or you got to take care of the younger siblings, or, you got to deal with the husband, who my dad was in the Marines the first 2 years they were married. And then I came along. So they got married in 62. I was born at the end of 66. So like almost 5 years later. Um, and just, it's like, some people would be like, that's just life. It's how life rolls out. You don't know what would happen if she'd gone to the Fashion Institute and da da da. Maybe she would have flunked out and life would have been terrible. But it just seems like sometimes, because I've experienced this, where you're like kind of hitting the wall all the time. It's like, why? It's like, this is a good thing I'm trying to do. Why is this so complicated? Why are people fighting me on this? Or, why are they not stepping up and helping? So I do think that, like, unresolved depression, frustrations, it can't be good for your brain. We know stress is terrible for us, and I think that's just a different flavor of stress. So I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's completely valid. That what happened in the past, it doesn't go away, right? It stays in our brain, and a lot of times it manifests as chronic illness in the body, and then I think we could see it later on with dementia.
Brains are so complicated. They're so
Oh,
fascinating.
right, right.
When people say, "Oh, we haven't conquered the last frontier," and they're generally talking about space, it's like, "Oh, no, no. The last frontier is our brains. When they conquer that, Lord only knows what humanity will be like. I am certain I will not be around at that point." So I think we have a very long way to go on that, but we seem to have made some progress in my life, so that's a good thing.
Hmm.
We just need
Yeah.
to we need to it seems like we need to, I don't know how you, like, throw off the shackles on research, like on plant-based medications like we're talking about, without unleashing God knows what, cuz humans are really good about screwing stuff up.
Right, right. And that's a great point to bring up too, is like the research with cannabis, and where does big pharma fall in? And cannabis is the most studied drug in the world. There are, I think, around 35,000 peer-reviewed papers written on it. And when it comes to big pharma, so the cannabis plant has over 500 bioactive chemicals, meaning like chemicals that react some way in our body. 500 of them in a plant.
It's a
And
lot.
that's a lot, right? And they all work together synergistically to help us. It's not just the THC or the CBD. It's like the terpenes, the flavonoids, and then like the chlorophylls in the plant, like all of these like really great things. So that's something you can't patent that. Can't patent this thing with over 500 chemicals. So there's no there's no reason to invest money in a product to go through the FDA pathway, right? Because it just to submit an application for drug approval is $4 million right now.
Just some pocket change.
Right, right. It's pocket change for big drug companies. So what the drug companies are going to do is they're going to isolate single compounds of the plant, like CBD. They have done that with the medication of Epidiolex. With THC, they've done that with the medication called Marinol. They've taken THC and then they synthesize it, they make it in a lab. And then they can do that with these other compounds from the plant and then make a medication, and then patent it so that they can get their return on investment back, and then have that go through the FDA pathway. The great thing about that is that's something that could be covered by insurance later, because of course cannabis and CBD aren't covered by insurance, but you're missing the other 499 amazing parts of the plant in that medication. So that's why I really like whole plant formulations that include the hundreds of different bioactive chemicals, and they're going to be more effective at a lower dose than a single compound pharmaceutical.
My understanding is the synthesized plant drugs, so like the Marinol, really
Mhm.
doesn't work as well as
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
an
you're right.
edible
It
or.
doesn't it doesn't work as well, and it has more side effects. And it's because it is purified THC. There's nothing in there to help balance the THC out.
So you're going from like a whole based, I'm thinking like food. So you're like natural versus highly processed.
Yes, yes. Or I like to think of it like a salad. If you're taking like Marinol would be like just a bowl full of lettuce, right? It's only going to be as effective as a bowl full of lettuce. But if you have a tincture kind of like this one, this has 6 different cannabinoids called Thrive, and terpenes and flavonoids. Like this is like your gourmet dinner salad with your fruits, your vegetables, your meats, cheeses, dressing, nuts, seeds, like all the wonderful things on it. And of course, that's like you could eat half of that and be full. That's going to do its job, right? As opposed to just a bowl full of iceberg lettuce, which is kind of like the equivalent of Marinol almost.
I could see that. So is there benefits for somebody? So my mom had Alzheimer's for 20 years. My maternal grandmother had vascular dementia and probably also Alzheimer's. My maternal great grandmother also had some form of dementia. Yay for me. Is there like a brain health benefit from any of the products that you're working with? Not that I need to take any more freaking supplements, but
Great question. This is actually an assignment I had to do for grad school. Is that you have a patient coming to you with a family history of dementia. They want to know what they can do. We don't have research to say, yes, you should be taking this product or this combination. We just don't have that research. But I would say something like just a low dose whole plant CBD product that you take regularly, that could definitely help your brain, like by decreasing that inflammation and potentially stopping the buildup of those plaques and proteins and stopping the neurons from breaking down, in those tangles.
I need to get a baseline on my brain because I have um, no concerns about my cognitive health, and I do all the
Mhm.
lifestyle stuff, exercise, sleep
Good,
good,
good.
blah blah blah. Like I'm not. The only thing I don't do is I don't eat fish. I can't stand any kind of fish, so I take a very high dose krill oil supplement.
Mhm.
If somebody said they'd promise I'd never get Alzheimer's if I ate salmon, I'd do it, but I wouldn't like it at all. It would
Mhm.
be,
Mhm.
I don't know if it'd be counterintuitive because, it would be unpleasant, but I would find a way if that was a guarantee, but thankfully it's not. So I just, I'd, eat really healthy. As healthy as one can eat in modern days. It's like
Right,
I don't
right.
grow everything. I live in a part of California where there's lots of deer. So if you want to grow stuff, you gotta build your garden jail to keep the deer
Yep.
out. So it's just like, that's a lot of work for unknown unknown results. Is what else should a caregiver like myself in the past, what typical behaviors should we one, investigate physical issues and then emotional issues, but what behaviors should we like say, hey, maybe I should talk to Megan about this,
Mhm.
see what they've got going on for. We've talked about agitation, we've talked about sleep. I don't know if there's any plant-based medication for wandering. that,
I mean,
that would
that's kind of like that could be anxiety related wandering. Also, if people are wandering, is it because their bodies just need to move? Like our bodies feel good when we're moving and when we're exercising. And is that what they're experiencing as well? Is it beneficial to help them move? Of course, with the woman who's like up all night wandering, that's not good. We want to
not if
make sure
she's
that
losing weight, not eating.
right, that it's not contributing to anything. But I had one patient last week who he was agitated and just wanted to get up. So they just took him outside for a walk and then he was calm after that. So is just moving the body beneficial? As humans, we should be moving our bodies anyways as much as we can. Um, but so yeah, anxiety is one thing, and then yeah, targeting the sleep, and also when the symptoms come on that can't be managed holistically, like with all of the interventions that we're doing, they're still having a problem. Then the doctor is like, okay, let's try this medication. And then that's when the family gets to decide, do we want to try a pharmaceutical or do we want to try something natural first? Or do we want to try both of them? We do have patients on both, and that's what works for them. So that's when the family just has to kind of decide how they want to best manage the symptoms.
A lot to learn. It's like I've been doing this for 7 years. Like I said, my mom's been gone for 4, and I'm still learning all kinds of stuff, which is obviously good for my brain. I wish I had known a lot of this 6, 7 years ago,
Hmm.
but that's okay. I'm trying to
I
think
wish
if
I had known this when I worked hospice. Like, I didn't even
yeah,
know all this when I worked hospice, and I could have helped so many patients.
would cannabis be maybe not a better option, but an alternative to the morphine?
Yes, yes. Cannabis can be so great for the end of life symptoms. THC, if anybody, if you've used THC, it gives you a little bit of a dry mouth. That can be great for end of life when people have all of the excess secretions. And it can help with that body wide pain that people feel. We just move an arm and they're moaning in pain. It can really help with that. Just a small amount of THC. We're typically doing THC at that point because it is, the most potent. So something like a little bit of oil, like rubbed on the tongue or on the gums, can really help. And then it can help to, just like morphine can help open up the airways, then THC can help open up the airways as well. We actually had cannabis was the first inhaler before we had albuterol. People were given joints to smoke instead, like before we had albuterol, and it helped with asthma.
That kind of blows my mind. I've had bronchitis enough that I've got occasional lung issues, and the thought of smoking a joint instead of using an inhaler, that's going to take a minute to wrap my head
Isn't that
around.
wild? Yeah, and it's because of the THC in there binds to those receptors and it opens up the airways.
Interesting. Would
Yes, and
not
of
have
course,
ever.
right, right. Chronic smoking, though, like you're smoking a bunch of times a day for a number of years, that can lead to chronic bronchitis and like this kind of wet sounding cough that goes away after people use. But there's no increased risk of lung cancer with smoking cannabis, which is really fascinating. And people with COPD could benefit too, because it can help open up their airways and dry up some of those secretions.
That's wild. I know somebody that has COPD, but I don't. No, he might. I'm not sure he's ever been told that that's an option, but that's wild.
Probably not. Yeah, isn't that wild?
It's, that's where the stereotype, it's like, you think of people who are smoking marijuana, cannabis, you get at least I get a mental picture. I'm sure most of the listeners get a mental picture that isn't necessarily accurate. And, you're dispelling myths, which is perfect. That's the whole reason of having these conversations. Like, next time I get bronchitis, maybe I'll go to the dispensary.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Northern California, so it's all legal.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, I haven't been to the ones in our new hometown yet, but that's okay. So, tell us a little bit about your business and how, if somebody's interested, they can get in touch with you, work with you, what you have to offer, because it sounds amazing. It sounds like we need to definitely share that information.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So the business is called Trusted Canna Nurse, and then that's the website, trustedcannanurse.com. And what we offer is, if people are just interested in our products and they just want to know which of our products are right for them, they can book a free product guidance call where they talk to the nurse, and then we can guide them through which of our products would be appropriate. And that's for free. Or they can just go online and purchase them without that call. But if they need that guidance, we provide that. If people want a little bit more in-depth consultation where we're looking at medication interactions, we have a board certified pharmacist on staff that can help run interaction checks. And if they want us to look at their whole health picture, what else besides cannabis and CBD can we do to optimize this person's health? We offer one-on-one consultations. And then for people who are interested in microdosing programs, like in microdosing psilocybin programs, then we offer, I believe they are 8-week programs where I have a nurse specialist who does that, and she guides people, holds their hand on their microdosing journey, and then she can facilitate the larger doses too for people who want to go deeper in their brain and do the larger doses.
I don't know, going deeper in my brain sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, that's for sure. That's for people who are ready.
So I'm assuming the advice that you're supplying to people, and if they call and have specific questions, is probably a little bit. I'm not trying to be disparaging, but it's probably a little more medically high quality than what the average bud tender at your dispensary is going to be able to
Yes.
tell you. Okay.
Yes, great question. That's a great point. That is definitely what separates us from bud tender is, bud tenders aren't allowed to give medical advice, and we aren't either, but we are educating how this works in the body. And, we have a different level of education than the typical bud tenders. Some are very educated, and I'm sure if you've experienced that as well, some are not, and some don't know what a terpene is. So that's what we're providing to patients is like nurse level care, in guiding them on their cannabis and CBD journey. And we know that seniors especially want and need that extra hand holding and that extra care.
Yeah, it's like a bud tender versus what you guys are doing. It's different services. It's not one's necessarily better than the other. It's just, you wouldn't
Mhm.
take your BMW to the Ford dealership because they're not. I mean, they could probably work on it, but you'd be better off at a European or a BMW dealership because
Exactly.
that's what they
Yes.
specialize in. I don't know why I'm talking about cars, but
That's a great analogy though. I like that. I'm going to use that.
yeah, it's just a different flavor of the similar. It's the same service but different. I don't know. That's
Right, right. And in California, the market is very recreationally focused. So, like, where they think everybody just wants to get high, or anybody goes to dispensary, like their goal is just to get high. But with seniors, especially, that's not the goal. Like, people just want to feel better and use a natural and safe product. And, but not necessarily, I mean, some want to get high, which is valid, but that's usually not the goal in what I see in my patients.
yeah. That wouldn't be my goal. Health. Fortunately, I don't have any health issues, so I don't I don't have a need at the moment. But it's nice to know that there's somebody out there versus like the dispensaries that are close to me. The first time I went to a dispensary, I'm like, they have armed guards outside. It's like, do I want to be here? No, I take that back. That was the first dispensary in California. I did go to one in
Mm,
Colorado. They didn't have an armed guard outside, but it was in a more the dispensary near my hometown is like in a warehouse area
okay.
in a town that's having and has had a lot of issues for quite a while. um, but yeah, it was a little, I'm showing up, blonde mom in my Honda Accord. It's like, lady, I think the target's that way.
Right.
It was just, it was a little, it was a little unnerving. And then of course, dopey me tries to pay with my debit card, which is a Visa debit card. They're like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, whoops.
Right, right.
I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I'm not at all clued in on how this works.
It's a
But this,
learning curve, isn't it? Like
yeah,
when I first went, even being younger, like it was really overwhelming for me, like not knowing like what what I'm even looking at, right? And then the bud tenders are somewhat helpful. Any bud tender recommending a 10 milligram gummy to a newbie is not safe because that can lead to adverse effects for our patients. So yeah, I see where you're coming from.
well, that and the decor was definitely not blonde suburban mom mom in an
Right.
Accord
Yeah.
style. I'm trying to remember the one in Colorado was a little bit more less Cheech and Chong and more retail establishment.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a while ago. But yeah, and it's like, so, and then in the back of your head, you're like, oh, I feel very out of place because I'm not like one of those people. I'm here because I've got shingles and the doctor's
Right.
not helping.
Right.
So
Yep. Yep.
it's nice to know that there's alternatives, and I'm really happy that I get to share that with the listeners because, like I said, I know many caregivers that use cannabis products for their loved ones, mainly for sleep. I don't know if any of them are using it for agitation or not. If they're getting a good night's sleep, they're probably less agitated.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Well, I appreciate all of this knowledge, and the website Trusted Canna Nurse is hot linked in the show notes, so you guys can just click on that. check it out. You don't have to go to the armed guard Cheech and Chong shop like I did. Which I'm sorry. I know that's pretty stereotypical, but that's what it felt like the first time. They were great people. So once you got over the initial, ooh, do I belong here feeling, it was a good experience, but it was definitely an experience. So I appreciate this, and if anybody has any questions, I'm sure they can reach out to you and
absolutely
be led down the right path.
Absolutely, yeah. And they can follow me on social media. I create educational content, so just look up Trusted Canada Nurse on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I have lots of free content there and educational.
I'll make sure the either Instagram or YouTube are linked in the show notes as well. Better write myself a note.
All right.
Because that's always, I liked, that's the kind of, like the 1 minute, the shorts and the reels content that I like. Something that'll either entertain or educate. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And just for my favorite listeners, here is this week's corny caregiver joke. Why did the family caregiver carry a whistle around with them? Because sometimes they needed a way to call a timeout when things get a little crazy. And for everybody, here is a taste of what you'll hear next week.
She wanted to be treated like she was someone, like Jeannie. And now she had to defend herself or think totally losing her autonomy. And all of this is obvious to me now, but in the moment, I was furious. I exploded with my own profusion of pent-up frustration for the morning. Don't ever say that again. We're going to keep exercising, working puzzles, reading books, seeing movies, doing everything possible to stay alive as long as we are alive. I didn't realize it then, but I was grieving, just as all caregivers mourn the lives they once had and the persons that their loved ones had been before Alzheimer's marked them indelibly. And in the last line of that paragraph, I wanted my Jeannie back.
Thanks for listening today, and we'll be back in your ears again next Tuesday. Please support our sponsors, for they help us bring this show to you for free.
Attention all drivers. Are you tired of spending hours waiting for an oil change? Say goodbye to long waits and hello to convenience with Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Our expert technicians will have you in and out in no time, so you can get back to what matters most. Plus, with our top-notch service and quality products, you'll drive away with peace of mind. Don't let a busy schedule slow you down. Visit Valvoline Instant Oil Change today and experience the difference.
Hi, I'm Chef Justin Timoneri, Florida's culinary ambassador. If you've enjoyed preparing fresh from Florida recipes, then you're going to love the Fresh from Florida Club. As a member, you'll be able to search and save delicious recipes, create custom menus, and ask me your cooking questions. Each month, you'll also get a list of what's in season, so you can make your family the freshest meals possible. It's free and easy to sign up. And best of all, you'll be supporting Florida's farmers, ranchers, and fishermen. Join the club at freshfromflorida.com today.